I married Sophia Hayes. We even had a beautiful daughter together, Lily. But her heart had never truly belonged to me. When I called to remind her about Lily's birthday, she was celebrating someone else's. The birthday of Daniel Sterling, her so-called white moonlight, along with his children at an upscale restaurant. She didn't even hesitate to warn me coldly over the phone. "You are already my husband. You got everything you wanted. Stop using our daughter to tie me down, will you?" She had no idea that this would be the last time I would ever celebrate Lily's birthday. After today, I would be erased from existence. Today was my final chance to win over Sophia Hayes. I sat in the dimly lit living room, staring at the small birthday cake I had carefully picked out for Lily. The pink frosting shimmered under the glow of the candles, but instead of bringing warmth, the sight of it only made my chest ache. I remembered Lily's birthday last year. She had turned 5 then. Her small hands tugged at my sleeve, her bright eyes filled with anticipation as she asked, "Daddy, will Mommy come home today?" She had promised. So I had woken up early, prepared everything, and waited for hours with Lily. But Sophia never came. The candles on the cake burned down, their tiny flames flickering until they faded into nothingness. In the end, I had no choice but to call her. Her voice through the receiver was indifferent, almost irritated. "If you can't wait, then don't. It's not my fault you were foolish enough to hope." It had been me, after all, who had kept them waiting like fools. I clenched my fists at the memory, my knuckles turning white. 10 years ago, the review system pulled me into this novel, forcing me into the role of the male lead. The system had only one rule. As long as I could win over Sophia Hayes, I would not be erased. So I had married her. I built a life with her. We had a daughter, Lily Carter, the most precious thing in my world. But over these 10 years, as I foolishly fell in love with Sophia, she remained cold and distant. Not once had she ever attended Lily's birthday, because her birthday happened to be the same day as Daniel Sterling's. Perhaps this was fate's way of mocking her. Perhaps even God himself had arranged it this way to remind her of what she couldn't have. Sophia Hayes hated me. She believed I had taken everything from her. To her, I had stolen her freedom, her choices, her chance to be with the man she truly loved. But what about me? What about my choices? I had spent a decade trying to win her love, only to realize that I had never stood a chance to begin with. The system had given me 10 years. And now, my time was up. I looked down at the small watch on my wrist. The countdown had already begun. By midnight, I would cease to exist. I let out a bitter chuckle, running a hand through my hair. How ironic. The novel's male lead, the so-called fated husband, was nothing more than a pawn in a cruel game. There was no real love in this world. Only pre-written destinies. And mine had reached its tragic ending. A soft giggle from the other room brought me back to reality. Lily. She was still in her room, playing with the balloons I had blown up for her. She had no idea that after tonight, her father would disappear. No idea that after tonight she would never hear my voice again. I swallowed hard, blinking back the stinging sensation in my eyes. I couldn't let her see me like this. For now, I had to pretend that everything was okay. Even if my time was running out, I would give Lily the best birthday of her life. Even if I was nothing more than a fleeting presence in this world, I would make sure she remembered me. And as for Sophia, even if I was doomed to be erased, I refused to let her forget me. I watched as Lily danced around the room, giggling as she tossed a balloon into the air. Her small hands clapped together, her eyes shining with joy, completely unaware of the weight pressing down on my chest. I should be happy. I should be cherishing this moment. But all I could see was the memory of last year. I had spent the entire day preparing for her birthday. I had woken up early, driven across town to buy her favorite cake, the one with little pink roses made of icing. I had carefully wrapped her presents, decorated the house with balloons, and laid out the plates and cups just the way she liked. Everything was perfect. All that was left was Sophia. She had promised. Lily sat on the couch, dressed in the pink dress I had picked out for her, her little legs swinging as she clutched a party hat in her hands. Every few minutes, she would glance toward the door, her excitement bubbling over. "Mommy will be here soon, right, Daddy?" I smiled, ruffling her hair. "Of course, sweetheart. Mommy wouldn't miss your special day." I had believed it. I had wanted to believe it. Minutes turned into an hour, then 2. The candles on the cake had melted down to small wax puddles, their flames flickering weakly before burning out. Lily tried to stay cheerful, but I could see the way her shoulders started to droop, the way she kept glancing at the clock. Sophia wasn't coming. Still, I had refused to give up. I had pulled out my phone, my fingers tightening around it as I dialed her number. The call rang once, twice. Then she picked up. "If you can't wait, then don't. It's not my fault you're foolish enough to hope." Her voice was flat, emotionless, as if she was bored of the conversation before it had even started. As if she hadn't left her daughter waiting for her all night. As if she hadn't just shattered a little girl's heart. I had wanted to argue, to beg, to demand an explanation, but what was the point? She had made her choice. I had stood there, phone still pressed against my ear, listening to the faint sound of laughter in the background. Not Lily's laughter, someone else's. I hung up, and in that moment, something inside me cracked. I blinked, forcing myself back to the present. Lily's laughter still echoed through the room, but this time, I wasn't waiting for Sophia. This time, I knew better. She never valued this family. She never valued me. And maybe, just maybe, it was time I stopped valuing her too. 10 years ago, I wasn't Ethan Carter. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I was just another soul drifting through existence, until the review system pulled me into this world. Congratulations, you have been selected as the male lead of this novel. Your task is simple. Win over the heart of Sophia Hayes. That was the rule. That was the mission. Back then, I hadn't cared. To me, Sophia was just an objective, a challenge to complete. I had played along, following the script, learning everything about her, her likes, her dislikes, her dreams, her past. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with her. I never realized when it happened. Maybe it was the way she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear when she was lost in thought. Maybe it was the rare moments when she let her guard down, when she laughed. Not the polite, distant kind she gave to others, but the real one, the one that made her eyes crinkle. Maybe it was because, for the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. So I married her. And for a moment, I thought I had won. But Sophia never loved me, not even when Lily was born. I had imagined she would change after becoming a mother. I thought that holding our daughter in her arms, seeing those tiny fingers grasp onto hers, would soften her. But Sophia never held Lily. She never sang to her, never stayed up late when she cried, never smiled when she took her first steps. She treated her own daughter like a stranger, just as she did with me. And now, I knew why. Because Lily was born on the same day as Daniel Sterling. Because every year while I set up balloons and cakes, Sophia was somewhere else, celebrating the birthday of the man she truly loved. She never forgot him. She never let him go. And maybe, she never would. I used to wait for her. Every birthday, every anniversary, every fleeting moment when I thought maybe, just maybe, Sophia would look at me differently. I waited for the warmth that never came. I waited for a love that never existed. But tonight, as I watched Lily blow out the candles on her cake, laughing as frosting smeared across her cheek, I realized something. I wasn't waiting anymore. This time, I didn't call Sophia. I didn't send her a reminder. I didn't even glance at my phone to see if she had sent a last-minute excuse, another empty apology wrapped in cold indifference. I refused to waste another second waiting for someone who had never truly been part of this family. Instead, I focused on the one person who mattered. "Daddy, look!" A teddy bear. Lily, held it up proudly, her small fingers gripping the soft fur as if it were the most precious thing in the world. I forced a smile, nodding, "It's perfect, sweetheart." And for the first time, I meant it. The night went on, filled with laughter and the sound of Lily's excited chatter as she played with her gifts. She didn't ask about her mother. She didn't wonder why Sophia wasn't there. Maybe, after all these years, she had learned not to expect anything from her either. By the time Lily finally dozed off, clutching her new teddy bear in her arms, the house was quiet again. I sat in the dimly lit living room, letting the silence settle around me. In the past, this was the part where I would pick up the phone. I would call Sophia. I would remind her. I would beg. But tonight, I didn't. It wasn't until close to midnight that I heard the front door unlock. The sound was so familiar, yet tonight it felt strangely foreign. Sophia walked in, her heels clicking softly against the floor. She set her purse down, glancing around the house as if she were stepping into a stranger's home. I didn't turn around. I didn't rush to greet her. I simply continued cleaning up, gathering empty plates and discarded wrapping paper, my movements steady and unhurried. For the first time, I didn't care. "You didn't call me," Sophia said finally. Her voice wasn't sharp or annoyed. It was curious. I paused for a moment, wiping down the table before responding. "Should I have?" Silence. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting for an explanation, an excuse, a plea, something. But I had nothing left to give her. Because I had already given her everything. And she had never wanted it. So instead, I turned to her with the faintest of smiles, my voice calm. "Lily had a great birthday." I picked up the last of the decorations and turned away. For the first time in 10 years, I was the one walking away. Sophia had never noticed me before. Not really. For 10 years, I had been there, waiting, reaching, hoping, and she had walked past me every single time. But now that I had stopped waiting, now that I had turned away, she finally started to notice. It started with the little things. She came home earlier than usual. She lingered in the doorway longer, as if debating whether to say something. She watched me with a furrowed brow, as if trying to figure out a puzzle she didn't even realize existed before. But I never gave her an answer. I never asked where she had been. I never begged her to sit down, to talk, to stay. And maybe, for the first time in our marriage, she was the one feeling unsettled. I didn't change much, not really. I still went to work, I still came home on time. I still took care of Lily. But what changed was that Sophia was no longer a part of the equation. I no longer reminded her about dinner. I no longer sent her messages when she was late. I no longer reached out to someone who had never once reached back. And somehow that seemed to frustrate her more than anything else. It wasn't until that evening, at a high-end restaurant downtown, that things finally came to a head. Sophia sat across from Daniel Sterling, the man she had loved long before me, the man she still celebrated every year. She had spent the evening with him, just like she always did. But this time, she wasn't fully present. Her mind was somewhere else, or rather, on someone else. Because across the restaurant, through the large glass windows, she spotted something she had never expected to see: me. And I was smiling, not at her, not because of her, but because of Lily. Through the glass, she saw me sitting in a brightly lit cafe across the street, laughing as I helped Lily scoop ice cream from a sundae bigger than her hands. Her little face was lit with joy, her eyes filled with pure happiness, and for once, my own smile wasn't forced. It wasn't the empty, tired smile I had given Sophia for years. It was real, and it wasn't for her. Sophia's grip tightened around her fork. "Sophia?" Daniel's voice pulled her back. She blinked, realizing she had been staring for too long. Something twisted inside her, something unfamiliar, a weight in her chest that she couldn't quite explain. Without another word, she stood abruptly, grabbing her coat. "Excuse me," she muttered, barely sparing Daniel a glance. Then she was out the door. The bell above the cafe door chimed as Sophia stepped inside. I looked up, meeting her gaze for the first time in days. She was angry, frustrated, confused. She didn't know why, and maybe that was what infuriated her the most. "What kind of game are you playing?" she demanded, crossing her arms. Lily, oblivious to the tension, kept happily eating her ice cream. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, my gaze steady. "I'm just being a father." Silence. For the first time, Sophia had no response. For the first time, she was the one left standing in the cold. I never wanted to meet Daniel Sterling. For 10 years, he had been nothing more than a shadow, a name whispered in passing, a ghost Sophia refused to let go of. I had spent years being compared to him, competing with a man who was never even here. But that night, as I stepped out of the cafe with Lily's small hand in mine, he was there. Waiting. Sophia hadn't left after our confrontation. She had stood outside pacing, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, and beside her, Daniel Sterling. He was taller than I expected, well-dressed, the kind of man who carried himself with confidence, knowing that people bent around his presence, not the other way around. He looked at me like he was trying to figure something out. Maybe he had expected someone weaker, someone desperate, someone still trying to hold on to a woman who never wanted him. But I wasn't that man anymore. So I met his gaze with calm indifference and turned to Lily. "Go wait in the car, sweetheart. I'll be right there." Lily nodded, skipping off toward the car, her stuffed teddy bear clutched in her arms. I turned back to Daniel Sterling. "You've been in my place for 10 years, he said, his voice smooth. Too smooth. "How does it feel?" I tilted my head slightly. "I should be asking you that," I replied. "How does it feel knowing that you left and she still waited for you?" Something flickered in his eyes. Just for a second, then he smirked. "You misunderstand," he said easily. "Sophia and we have something special. She understands me, and I understand her. Some connections don't fade no matter how much time passes." I let out a soft chuckle, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. "Is that what you tell your wife?" The smirk disappeared, and just like that, the illusion of Daniel Sterling shattered. It was almost too easy. With a few simple words, the perfect image Sophia had built of him crumbled into dust. I didn't have to say much more. The rest fell into place on its own. Daniel wasn't the untouchable, tragic love she had made him out to be. He wasn't waiting for her. He wasn't holding on to some unfinished romance. He was married, had been for years, and yet he still strung Sophia along, keeping her as a backup option, a safety net in case his perfect life ever fell apart. I could see it in her face as she put the pieces together. The way her fingers curled into fists, the way her breath hitched, the way she stared at him, not me, for once, really stared at him, like she was seeing him for the first time. For years, she had refused to let go of Daniel, because she had convinced herself that he had been taken from her, that fate had been cruel, that I had been the obstacle between them. But the truth was much simpler. Daniel had never chosen her to begin with. I turned to leave, already knowing there was nothing left to say, and this time, I didn't look back. Sophia had always believed she was the one who had been wronged. For years she had convinced herself that I was the reason for her misery, the reason she couldn't be with Daniel Sterling. She had resented me, pushed me away, refused to see me as anything other than the man who took everything from her. But now, as she sat alone in our empty living room, she realized something. I had never taken anything. The memories came in fragments. Me holding an umbrella over her head when she had forgotten hers. Me staying up late, waiting for her to come home, only for her to walk past me without a word. Me bringing her coffee exactly the way she liked it, even though she never once asked how I liked mine. Me reaching for her, time and time again, only to be met with cold silence. She had always thought of me as a burden, but now she saw it for what it truly was. A one-sided love. A love that had never demanded anything in return. And for the first time she asked herself, had she ever really looked at me? Lily's laughter drifted in from the other room, pulling Sophia from her thoughts. She hesitated before standing up, smoothing out her dress. For years, she had kept her distance from Lily, not because she didn't care, but because she didn't know how to be a mother. She had always told herself there would be time, that she could fix things later. But now, as she stood in the doorway of Lily's room, watching her daughter play with her stuffed animals, she felt something she had never felt before. Fear. Because for the first time, she realized she might have already lost her. Taking a slow breath, she stepped forward. "Lily," she said softly. Her daughter looked up, blinking. For a moment, Sophia swore she saw something in her eyes. Curiosity, hesitation. But then Lily tilted her head, her small brows furrowing. "Who are you?" The words were quiet, innocent, but to Sophia they were a knife straight through the chest. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Lily had asked the question so casually, as if she were speaking to a stranger. Because that's exactly what Sophia was, a stranger. She had spent years keeping her distance, and now Lily had done the same. And it hurt. For the first time, Sophia understood, not just what she had done, but what she had lost. I had spent 10 years waiting, 10 years hoping, 10 years loving someone who had never once looked back, and now I was done. I packed lightly. There wasn't much I needed to take. Most of the things in this house weren't really mine. They were Sophia's. They always had been. I had tried to build a home here, but in the end I was just a guest, a temporary presence. And now my time was up. As I zipped up my bag, I felt a small tug on my sleeve. I turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, her teddy bear clutched tightly in her arms. Her big, teary eyes searched mine, and for the first time she looked scared. "Daddy, where are you going?" I crouched down, forcing a smile, a real one. One that wouldn't scare her. "I have to go for a while, sweetheart. But you'll come back, right?" I didn't answer, because I couldn't lie to her. Her small hands fisted the fabric of my shirt, her little body shaking as she buried her face into my chest. "No, you can't go. Please, Daddy, don't leave me." Her sobs were muffled against me, and my arms instinctively wrapped around her. For so many years, Lily had been the only person in this house who ever truly needed me. And now, I was leaving her behind. I closed my eyes, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "You're going to be okay, Lily," I whispered. "You're strong. You're braver than you think." She shook her head furiously, gripping me tighter. "I don't want to be brave. I just want you to stay." The ache in my chest was unbearable, but this was for the best. This was what I had to do. I slowly pried her hands away, ignoring the way my heart clenched when she let out another choked sob. And then I heard it. A voice I had never expected, soft, shaky, desperate. I don't want to lose you." I froze. Slowly, I turned. Sophia stood there. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, but her fingers dug into her sleeves, trembling. Her lips were parted, as if she couldn't believe she had said the words out loud. As if she hadn't meant to say them at all. Her eyes, for the first time in 10 years, finally looked at me. But was it too late? Because I wasn't sure if I could look back anymore. A cold chime rang in my mind. Mission failed. Then came the words I had been dreading for 10 years. I exhaled slowly, pressing my eyes shut. So this was it. Lily was still clinging to me, her tiny fingers gripping my shirt like she could keep me here. But she didn't know. She didn't see the way my hands had started to fade at the edges. The way my presence in this world was slowly unraveling. Erasure and press, 5 minutes remaining. I held her tighter, burying my face into her soft curls. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered, even as my voice wavered. "Daddy's here." A lie. I wasn't going to be here much longer, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Then I heard her voice. Sharp, panicked. "Sophia." She had gone pale. Her lips slightly parted, her entire body frozen in place. And I knew. She saw it. She saw what was happening to me. "Ethan?" Her voice cracked on my name. I gave her a small smile, even as my fingertips started to disappear. "Looks like I lost," I murmured. She shook her head. "No." Then louder. "No, you can't just disappear." The world around me shuddered, the system pressing down like an invisible force. Erasure in 3 minutes. Sophia's breath hitched. She stepped forward, then she dropped to her knees. I had spent 10 years begging for her love, and now in my final moments she was the one begging for me. "Please," she choked out. "Don't go." Her hands clutched at my arm, desperate, her eyes wild with something I had never seen before. Fear. "I don't." She swallowed hard, her fingers trembling. "I don't want to lose you." I lifted a fading hand, brushing a tear from her cheek. "It's too late, Sophia." She shook her head violently. "No, it's not. It's not too late." And then she did something I never expected. She turned, her tear-streaked face lifted to the empty air, as if looking directly at the system itself. "You want love?" she demanded, her voice raw. "That's what this was all about, right? Then take it." "Because she sucked in a shaky breath, her entire body trembling. "I love him." The world seemed to stop, and then my breath caught. Could love really change fate? Silence, a long, suffocating silence. The weight of the system pressed down on me, heavier than ever. I could feel my existence unraveling, thread by thread, slipping away. Then, a chime. I sucked in a breath, daring to hope. New data input, confirming subject Sophia Hayes' emotional state. I turned to Sophia, my chest tightening. She was still kneeling, her fingers trembling against my arm, her breath coming in sharp, uneven gasps. But her eyes held something I had never seen before. Not coldness, not resentment, not regret, but something softer, something real. Everything stopped. The pressure lifted. The fading sensation in my body disappeared. I was still here. I was still alive. Sophia let out a choked sob, pressing a hand to her mouth as if she couldn't believe it. Neither could I. I had spent 10 years chasing after her love, begging for it, and now, at the very last moment, she had given it freely. But was it enough? I glanced down at Lily, still clutching my shirt, her tear-streaked face buried against me. She had almost lost her father, all because of the woman who had ignored her for years, a woman who now said she loved me. But did love erase the past? Could it undo 10 years of pain? Sophia stood slowly, her hands still shaking at her sides. She opened her mouth, then hesitated. "Ethan, She faltered, looking away. "You don't have to say anything," I said quietly. She flinched, because she knew. She knew that just because she had realized her feelings, it didn't mean everything could go back to the way it was. Love alone wasn't enough to erase the scars. That night, I stayed, for Lily, for myself. Not because Sophia had begged me to, not because the system had forced me to, but because, for the first time, I had a choice. Days passed. Sophia tried. She started coming home earlier. She sat at the dinner table instead of retreating to her room. She tried to talk to Lily, tried to reach out. But Lily hesitated. She didn't run into her mother's arms. She didn't call for her when she was scared at night. Because love could not be demanded. It had to be earned, and Sophia had never earned it before. One evening, as I stood on the balcony, looking at the city lights below, I felt her presence behind me. She was quiet for a long time before finally speaking. "Do you still think this is all just a game?" I closed my eyes, because I didn't know the answer. The system had controlled everything from the start. Had it changed Sophia? Or had she changed because she was finally given the chance to choose for herself? "I don't know," I admitted. She exhaled, nodding slowly. "Neither do I." A pause. Then, almost hesitantly, "But I want to find out. Can love truly change people? Or is this all just a game of the system?" I didn't have the answer, but for the first time in 10 years, I was willing to wait and see. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future content.